West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. À fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
You know, nobody is a Nazi but a Nazi. Nobody is Hitler but Hitler. Nobody is Mussolini but Mussolini, right? There's no point in making, and there's no cause to make any sort of modern analogy to the fascist dictatorships of the 1930s. But we are having this weird moment in American news and politics right now where half the country is shouting about how the Republican presidential nominee keeps quoting those dictators. He keeps saying the kinds of things, the exact kind of things that Hitler and Mussolini said as they ascended to and consolidated power. And you see the names of those dictators, and you see the discussion of that period in history all over the news right now because he is saying those things. He is effectively quoting Mussolini and Hitler in some of their most effective propagandistic tactics. But pointing out that he's saying Hitler-esque and Mussolini-esque things turns out to not be enough to make him stop saying those things. He doesn't mind being compared to those people. Why is he willing to keep saying those things? Despite everybody pointing out, hey, that's what Hitler said. Hey, that's what Mussolini said. You don't want to be a Hitler or a Mussolini, do you? Why is it not enough to stop him from using those tactics, from saying those things, from trying to make people think about the world that way? It's not enough because those things work for him. There is a reason that it is, it's dictators and authoritarians who talk about their internal enemies being vermin who have to be rooted out or exterminated. There's a reason that it's dictators and authoritarians who talk about immigrants poisoning the blood of the country. There's a reason they do it, which is that it works on people. It makes people want to put a strong man in charge, to break all the rules and destroy those very scary enemies, right? Iron fist. There's been all this discussion, I know, in the past few days about the former president, the Republican presidential frontrunner, playing this fascist dictator greatest hits mixtape, right? I do want to be a dictator. I will root out the vermin amongst us, the Marxist communist vermin. Immigrants are poisoning the blood of our country. There's been a lot of discussion about that in recent days, and there should be. But pointing at it and saying, that sounds really dictatory, isn't enough. Right? Why is it that even after everybody pointed out that those were Hitler-esque and Mussolini-esque statements, he kept doing them? Right? These are things he has tried out in the last few weeks. He is now repeating them. He is putting them in writing. He is making them part of his regular speeches. Why is he doing that? Because these things are getting a good response. A good response, a response that he likes. Not just the outrage of his critics, which he likes, but the pleasure and support of the people who like him the most. In a Des Moines Register poll this weekend, this is the Des Moines Register NBC News Mediacom Iowa poll this weekend, that poll asked Iowa Republicans about Trump's recent statements along these lines. The poll asked whether these comments from Trump would make you more or less likely to support him, Iowa Republican. And the answers are worth paying attention to. On his claim that immigrants are poisoning the blood of America, which is straight out of Mein Kampf. On the vermin in the United States that needs to be rooted out, which comes straight out of the playbook of Mussolini and Hitler. Even on his pledge to build giant camps to hold millions of people in this country. On those statements, Iowa Republican voters say, as of this weekend, that those statements from Trump make them more likely to vote for him, not less. These things that Trump is saying right now, they sound familiar, not just because he's going for shock value, not just because he's going for the transgressive thrill of saying things that famous dictators and genocidal maniacs have said in the past. The reason these things sound familiar and he started to repeat them and started to make them part of his regular repertoire is because this stuff works. There's a reason Hitler and Mussolini said this stuff too. It worked then. It works now. It has worked abroad all over the world. And yes, it has worked here too. More than we like to remember, which is why I wrote this book this year. It's not just a bad and dangerous thing he's doing that you can stop him from doing by pointing out that it's bad and dangerous. This kind of rhetoric, trying to turn Americans not just against each other, but to the idea that some people among us are so dangerous that they must be exterminated, that some threats to us justify terminating the Constitution, that justify being a dictator, if only for a day. This is the sort of thing that has a political point. It is designed to make you believe that a democratic system with checks and balances and the constraint of the rule of law and elections where people are voted out sometimes and divided power within government, those things are not up to stopping these terrible evils that threaten us, the terrible threat that some people among us pose to the rest of us. This stuff is tactically efficient. It's designed to make us think that we need a strong man. We need a tough man. We don't need a legal system and all its constraints. We don't need a court system. We don't really need a political process. We don't need politicians. We don't need Congress. We need strength, will, action, revenge, broken rules, maybe even violence. These statements are not just supposed to shock you. They're supposed to work on you, to make you believe we need something new and extreme to deal with our terrible problems, if only for a little while, maybe just a temporary dictatorship. And these tactics have a terrible history of working really well in other countries and yes, here in our past. Once you realize that it is a political tactic, well then how do you stop it from working? If it has worked well in the past, what have we learned from the past about how to stop it from working so well again? Well, it's not rocket science, but it does take work, and right now. I mean, I think it should hopefully go without saying that one thing that needs to be done is to refuse personally, individually, all of us, to play any part in any politics that depends on you thinking of your political opponents as monsters. To refuse to participate in any politics that depends on any group in society being seen as a menace, as something that needs to be eliminated or rooted out. It means standing up for any group that is being targeted that way. And yes, there is a role for regular citizens in that. Thank you to the Daphne, Alabama church that offered its church facilities to the local synagogue down the road that had to flee in the face of that bomb threat before its own Saturday services this weekend. There's a space there for regular people, but there's also a place for law enforcement. As I said, the Massachusetts Attorney General is here next. It also means that the legal system has to be both used and defended, right? The legal system needs to play a role in prosecuting crimes, upholding the idea that the rule of law still applies, and it needs to be protected from political pressure and intimidation. It also means we need to both use and defend the political system that we do have, that the anti-democratic forces among us want us to abandon. When they attack not just election results, but election workers, That is part of breaking the small d democratic system, which of course makes it easier for us all to imagine throwing it away. Tonight, Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss, two Georgia election workers, have sued Trump lawyer Rudy Giuliani again to stop him from defaming and attacking them further after a court awarded them $148 million in damages for his previous defamation and attacks. Protecting people like that, making sure that people like that are both protected and that the system works for them to get justice. That's part of it too. Standing up for people who are being attacked and scapegoated. Stopping violence and intimidation in the political system, both through solidarity at a regular human level, but also through law enforcement. Defending not just the idea of elections as an abstract, but the people who make elections work at a nuts and bolts level. Refusing to give in to the idea that we're somehow different kinds of humans, that we need an iron fist to protect one another, to protect us from one another more than we need democracy. You can't just object to these tactics and say, wow, that's what dictators of yore have used. It's to recognize that dictators of yore have used those things because these tactics have been effective at getting people to want to give up democracy and to put themselves in the hands of a strongman leader instead. It's recognizing that this stuff isn't just offensive, it works. And it's not history, it's now.
It is Tuesday, the 19th of December of 2023, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner the English Bulldog is our snoozing sous chef. Precious the little Yorkie is our door girl, and she will be seating you directly for our especially special daily special, Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. A small scant dash, a mere pinch of hot smoked Hungarian paprika will make all the difference in the world. It always has, and it always will. Okay. Got to get those taglines tagged, okay? So that one's done. And we're moving on. Well, how are you doing here? It seems like the world continues to be asunder. I saw various clips of, I call them pro-Hamas people, terrorizing anybody that they will construe as not being pro-Hamas as well. But they went to some meeting of a longtime black organization and started yelling, ceasefire now and genocide Joe, and calling these people genociders. They were not having any of it. And a few of those people were a bit older than us. In fact, one lady, I'm not saying she's older than us. I'm just saying that we're there, right? And so this one lady who was not having any of it started going at them with a yellow cane. I love that. Very, very color coordinated with her dress. She looked lovely, I gotta say. But she wasn't having anything of it. She was a grandma, and you don't mess around. So it's getting a little bit out of hand. I think that we need to remind ourselves who is behind this. Now, it's easy to say it's Vlad. It's easy to say it's, the Hamas or the Bonesaw Nation. Because, they would. But it's really Bannon and Mike Flynn doing this psyops. They've been pushing this brainwashing about division for quite some time. So this is not grassroots. It has been AstroTurf from day one. And I got to tell you, the massacre happened on October 7th. We started hearing ceasefire just after midnight on October 8th. Ceasefire now. So I think we need to... Now I know I'm preaching to the choir. I apologize. But if you can get the word out, people need to wake up. And if that means they get woke, so be it. Is there institutional racism in America? When has there not been? That should be the question right there. No wonder they're going after woke, because they're institutional racists. Anybody who would go on and on and on about CRT as being, and DEI as being the scourge and the destruction of America are institutional racists. I'm not a racist. I married an immigrant. Yeah. Some of my best friends, huh? You're gonna try that? Institutional racism exists. There's no getting around it. And yet, here we have this Bannon and Mike Flynn psyops trying to align Hamas with Black Lives Matter. Oh yeah, Black Lives Matter is Hamas. Oh, the Black American is part of Hamas. What the hell are they talking about? Do they really think we're that stupid? Well, we know who is stupid enough to believe that BS. And I'm not saying, I am saying it's. I'm saying this to people who pretty much are, ill-educated, crass. You know who we're talking about. So, all that said, and as serious and, I don't know, even funny as it could be, but in all seriousness, I'm going to change the subject a little bit and give you a little bit of rundown of some personal note. Took my mom in for her yearly pulmonary exam where they check her carotid artery. And her blockage has gotten worse, way worse. So they at the lab or the hospital where she had a test have referred us to a cardiologist that we can see right away, and they're going to get back to us hopefully today to see if she can take anesthesia to go under. And my sister said it's a stent because she had a similar thing not too long ago, and I don't think it was in her carotid, but she knows. So it's not as invasive of a surgery as a hip surgery, hip replacement. So it's really just, can she go under anesthesia? And there's always risks in any kind of surgery. We know that. Her skin and blood vessels are so gossamer thin, but, that's a worry. But the other alternative is that she could get a stroke. So we have her on Plavix, which is to, open up the artery and get some more blood in there. So that is a bit of a concern. So we'll play it by ear on how we'll do the show and also run the radio station. It may be that I have to turn it on as a robot station without the handcrafted part of how we take great care in our handcrafted radio station here. But like I said, we'll play it by ear. It's it's quite serious. Mom's actually taken it quite well. She's been sort of recalcitrant about, I'm not going to have a surgery. I don't want anybody trying to save me, that kind of stuff. But when the doctor who consulted with us after the test, Mom was, let's do it. So hopefully we can. Otherwise, I guess they can attend to it with the Plavix. But those of you out there know. And if you know, you know. Okay, what do we have in store for you here in the curated part of this salon that we call West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy? At the top, that was Rachel explaining that the reason Trump keeps jawing like a fascist is because it works. Yeah, you see, we got the Mussolini jut jaw going. I hate that guy. On the rest of the menu, a lawsuit says Georgia's lieutenant governor should be disqualified from office for acting as a Trump elector. And we're talking Trump fake elector, by the way. Trump campaign lawyer Kenneth Chesbrough testified in the Nevada fake electors case to avoid prosecution. Turncoat. And an audit finds Tennessee prisons are severely understaffed and officers are worried about their safety. Okay, well, after the break, we move to the chef's table where the Greek anti-terror squad investigates after a bomb was defused near riot police headquarters. Well, you know, they got Golden Dawn over there, which is their neo-Nazi movement, and some of them are part of government. And finishing up, the European Union is investigating Musk's ex over possible breaches of the new tough social media law. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. At netrootsradio.com, to the right of the page is the chat room link, and the chat room is monitored by Kelly Lincoln, and we thank Kelly for doing so. If you would look across the page to the left from that chat room link that's near the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, you'll notice the link to our Patreon site, and if you could become a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio, it really does help us pay our bills. Though the bulk of what we do here comes out of our own wallets, we would be unable to do it without you, as Tom has told you many times before as well. And thank you for your generosity. Now, if you could afford to send us what you might spend, I don't know, on an espresso-type coffee drink, for instance. If you could afford to send those funds our way once a month, it really does put a big dent in the bills and costs that are paid so that we can continue this powerhouse of resistance. And thank you for your generosity over these many years in allowing us to fulfill our civic duty as the founders originally intended so many, many years ago. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, Mastodon, Spoutable, Blue Sky, Facebook, you can do so at Netroots Radio. Tom takes care of most of those, and we all take care of some of them too. But Tom takes care of most of them, so check it out. You can also follow the show on Twitter at Cookbook West, and do please pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, etc., etc. Did I fail to mention that you should follow me at Justice Putnam on all those social media sites as well, because I post the show notes and links diary 10 minutes before showtime so you can read the actual articles? Well, since I didn't, I just did. Okay. Yikes. Tuesday, and I'm already messing up. Okay, let's tuck into this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. And it is by Jeff Amy out of the Associated Press. A judge heard arguments yesterday, Monday, but did not rule on a long-shot attempt to disqualify Georgia Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones from holding office because of Jones' participation as a fake elector for Donald Trump in 2020. The lawsuit comes as a decision remains in limbo on whether to prosecute the Republican on state charges due to a lack of a special prosecutor willing to take the case. Now, don't let anyone tell us that our judicial system has been corrupted. Don't let them. Okay. A group of 4 Georgia voters, including the former head of the Atlanta branch of the NAACP, on December 7th, asked a judge to declare that Jones is ineligible to hold office in Georgia. They allege he violated his oath oath of office by signing his name as a Trump elector. Democrat Joe Biden was certified as winning Georgia's 16 electoral votes in 2020's election. Now, opponents nationwide are challenging Trump's eligibility to appear on ballots, arguing he's barred under a clause in the U.S. Constitution that forbids those who, quote, engaged in insurrection, end quote, from holding office. The provision was mainly used after the Civil War to keep former Confederates out of government. So what do they do in response? Yeah, lynching. In Georgia, challengers argue the same clause bars Jones from holding office. That's because Jones, then a state senator, had taken an oath to support the U.S. and Georgia's constitutions. They say Jones is an insurrectionist against the Constitution of the United States of America. Now, Jones didn't attend Monday's hearing and said the challenge is fueled by partisan politics. Well, hell yeah. You tried to take part in the violent overthrow of the United States of America. You interfered actively in the peaceful transition of power. Like President Trump, I am targeted by liberal Democrats intent on weaponizing the legal system against strong conservatives fighting for common sense conservative values, Jones said in a statement. Common sense values in which you lie. You lied about Trump winning the election? Please. Common sense shows that you, we know what you are. William Dillon, Jones' attorney, argues that the challenge lacks evidence to show Jones engaged in an insurrection against the United States or has given aid and comfort to the enemies of the United States. Okay. I just got to tell you, just because they look like, middle America and they got their, big old trucks and they got the gun racks, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What makes you think they're not enemies of the United States? Superior Court Judge Thomas Wilson heard arguments yesterday, Monday, in Jones' hometown of Jackson, Georgia, 40 miles south of Atlanta. Wilson gave lawyers time to file additional briefs before ruling. Wayne Kendall, a lawyer for the petitioners, said in a telephone interview after the hearing that he expects Wilson to reject the challenge. Kendall said that he then expects to appeal to the state Supreme Court. Now, Jones was one of 16 Republicans who gathered on December 14th of 2020 at Georgia's Gold Dome Capitol, claiming to be legitimate electors. The meeting is critical to the prosecution of Trump and 18 others who were indicted by a Georgia grand jury in August for efforts to overturn Biden's narrow win. It wasn't so narrow. Of those in Georgia indicted in August, only 3 acted as Trump electors, and all were indicted for crimes beyond that. Rio Yamat and Gabe Stern of the Associated Press brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. The lawyer who helped orchestrate the Trump campaign's fake elector scheme in 2020 was a target in a criminal investigation in Nevada, but his name was removed from the indictment in exchange for his cooperation with authorities, according to newly released transcripts of secret grand jury proceedings in Las Vegas. The documents made public on Sunday show that in late November, Kenneth Chesbrough testified to a grand jury in Clark County, Nevada, about the plot that ultimately led to the indictments this month of 6 Nevada Republicans who made a last-ditch attempt to keep Trump in power by sending a phony electoral certificate to the National Archives. The fake electors involved in the GOP at the state or county level are charged in state court with offering a false instrument for filing and uttering a forged instrument. Chesebro's deal with the state Democratic Attorney General Aaron Ford's office, which investigated the case, comes on the heels of Chesebro's plea agreement with prosecutors in Georgia, where he was charged alongside Trump and 17 others with participating in efforts to overturn Trump's 2020 loss in Georgia. Chesebro pleaded guilty in Georgia to one felony charge of conspiracy to commit filing false documents, just as jury selection was getting underway in his trial. As part of the deal, prosecutors agreed to dismiss 6 other counts. In the Nevada case, Chesebro told the grand jury that he sent the state GOP an organized, step-by-step explanation of what they would have to do to sign certificates falsely stating that Trump, not President Joe Biden, had won their state. Chesebro also admitted in his testimony that he viewed Nevada as extremely problematic to the fake elector plot that spanned several battleground states of Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, New Mexico, Nevada, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. The transcripts show that the grand jury was seated in the case on November 14th, nearly 3 years after the 6 Nevada Republicans gathered in Carson City, Nevada on December 14th of 2020, and then signed the fake certificate. The grand jury convened 2 more times before handing up the indictment. Travis Lawler and Jonathan Matisse of the Associated Press brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Tennessee prisons are severely understaffed with a vacancy rate at one prison of 61%, leading to unsafe conditions for both inmates and guards, a state audit of the prison system found. The audit by the state comptroller's office also found a shortage of such prisoner services as therapy, substance abuse treatment, education, and reentry assistance. It also found problems safeguarding against sexual assault that included housing potential predators with potential victims, as well as a shortage of medical and behavioral health staff. Some problems have surfaced repeatedly, including in audits from 2017 and 2020. Auditors surveyed correctional officers at prisons operated by both the Tennessee Department of Correction and private contractor Core Civic about how the staffing affects them. The prison staffing problems persist despite years of efforts to attract and retain officers, including through pay raises, bonuses, and relocation assistance. Turnover among officers at Trousdale Turner Correctional Center, operated by Brentwood, Tennessee-based private contractor Core Civic, was 188% last fiscal year. Average turnover at Core Civic facilities stood at 146%, while state-run facilities had an average turnover rate of 37%. Of the officers hired after bonuses were implemented, 44% left within 12 months. Average correctional officer vacancy rates for fiscal year 2023 were 30% for state-run facilities and 42% for core civic facilities, which house over a third of Tennessee's 19,000 prison inmates. Another 3,500 are housed in jails. The state-run Northwest Correctional Complex in Tiptonville had the highest vacancy rate at 61%. At a recent legislative hearing, Correction Department Commissioner Frank Strada said the state has changed Northwest leadership. He added that the high turnover at core civic facilities is partly due to staff rotating in from out of state for up to 3-month stints. Tennessee law requires prisons to deliver a comprehensive program of rehabilitative treatment for offenders. However, many programs have limited capacity that effectively moves them out of reach. Wait lists for therapy and substance abuse treatment programs are in the thousands, leaving prisoners waiting months or even years. All right, that brings us to our break. And when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we've curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. This week, way past Alice and the Wizard. A new project from Hayao Miyazaki is always an occasion, and his new and somewhat autobiographical The Boy and the Heron doesn't disappoint. A project 7 years in the making, it features Miyazaki's signature hand-drawn animation said to have proceeded at about a minute of production per month. The result, when viewed on the big screen, is like being inside a dynamic watercolor. The story set in wartime Japan, where 12-year-old Mahito loses his mother in an air raid. His father, a military industrialist, retreats to his late wife's sister's country estate with the traumatized Mahito. And yeah, Dad is now married to the sister, Natsuko, who is pregnant and subsequently disappears. It's here where he meets an array of characters, from Natsuko's wizened maids to the very strange talking heron who lures Mahito to an abandoned haunted tower on the property with promises of reuniting him with his mother. In the tower, Mahito sinks through the floor to the upside down, if you will, a conflictual world of variously allied or warring factions of weird human, animal, and miscellaneous, for lack of a better term, beings, and edifices through which he must navigate. In this upside down, Mahito finds Natsuko in a delivery room, a Freudian touch, but only a sample of the symbolism permeating this one. Part of Miyazaki's wisdom is to leave a lot to interpretation. It's a coming-of-age story, to be sure, but an expansive one encompassing finding one's place between ancestors and descendants, choosing the comfort of fantasy or the reality of life, and being resilient in the face of conflict and uncertainty. The Boy and the Heron is one not to miss, but animated or not, leave the kids at home. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. Catch up with us at take2moviereview.com and feed us back on our channel on YouTube.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Welcome to A Cup of Health with CDC, a weekly feature of the MMWR, the Morbidity and Mortality Weekly Report. I'm your host, Dr. Robert Gaines. Arthritis affects more than 1 in 5 adults and is the most common cause of disability in the United States. Dr. Camille Barber is a researcher with CDC's National Center for Chronic Disease Prevention and Health Promotion. He's joining us today to discuss ways to control arthritis. Welcome to the show, Camille.
Thank you.
Camille, are there different types of arthritis?
Yes, there are over 100 types. The most common types are osteoarthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, gout, and fibromyalgia.
What are the symptoms of arthritis?
Arthritis, which is joint inflammation, can result in pain, stiffness, and swelling in the joints.
Does arthritis affect some people more than others?
Yes, it affects primarily the elderly. It also affects people with chronic conditions such as heart disease, diabetes, and obesity. And it's also much higher in women compared to men.
What are some strategies for managing arthritis pain?
Now, adults with arthritis may be reluctant to engage in physical activity because of the symptoms that they have, such as joint pain and stiffness. However, we know that there are low-impact types of physical activities, such as walking and swimming, that have been shown to improve function and reduce pain in adults with arthritis. There are also self-management programs that, in addition to these physical activity programs, have different ways to maintain weight and other ways to control your arthritis symptoms.
How can people reduce their risk of developing arthritis?
So as I said earlier, osteoarthritis is the most common type of arthritis, and the best way to reduce your chances of developing it is to maintain a normal weight and avoid joint injury.
Camille, where can listeners get more information about arthritis, including the self-management program?
Listeners can go to cdc.gov/arthritis.
Thanks, Camille. I've been talking today with CDC's Dr. Camille Barber about ways to control the pain caused by arthritis. Remember, although there's no cure, arthritis can be controlled through medical treatment, regular exercise, and weight maintenance. If you suffer from arthritis, talk to a healthcare provider about programs to manage your condition. Until next time, be well. This is Dr. Robert Gaines for A Cup of Health with CDC.
For the most accurate health information, visit www.cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Arthritis is common among veterans. Traumatic and overuse injuries during active duty are risk factors for developing arthritis. Fortunately, there are low-cost or no-cost strategies that can help veterans manage arthritis. Physical activity can reduce pain and improve function. It can also help improve mood and play a role in managing other chronic conditions, such as heart disease, diabetes, and obesity. You can do low-impact activities, such as walking, biking, swimming, and water aerobics, all good forms of exercise. Arthritis-specific classes can help you get started. Information on classes, exercise programs, and tools are available at cdc.gov/arthritis. These resources can help reduce pain and improve function. Learning self-management techniques can help all veterans become more active, improve their overall quality of life, and thrive.
For the most accurate health information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
This is the story of a very special woman. In a matter of seconds, she turned herself into a great mathematician or an entrepreneur. Her knowledge was limitless and still is. She could also make monsters disappear, especially those that lurked in the shadows under the bed. Once, this woman put back together a teenage girl's broken heart, which had been shattered in 1,000 pieces, just by giving her a bear hug. She masqueraded as a regular person at work, but as a superhero at home. Everyone knows her as Gabriella. I still call her Mom.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need to help, complete with tips and resources at aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Hi, it's Tom. Could we humbly suggest your donation to netrootsradio.com? All we've got to run this 24-hour powerhouse of progressive resistance radio is what comes out of our own wallets. And you are our biggest donor. It doesn't take much, $3, $5. Just go to the bottom of our netrootsradio.com page and hit our secure donate button. Heck, you can even make a recurring contribution. So donate what you'd like at the bottom of our netrootsradio.com's homepage, because you are our biggest donor. netrootsradio.com. Together, we are Resistance Radio.
If you thought that courts wouldn't try to further gut the 1965 Voting Rights Act, think again. I'm Bill Newman, and this is the Civil Liberties Minute. In 2013, the Supreme Court, 5-4, in a case from Shelby County, Alabama, killed more than half of the historic Voting Rights Act of 1965 by striking down what's called preclearance. Preclearance meant that a state or county with a long history of racial discrimination in voting had to get an okay, a preclearance, from a federal court or the Department of Justice before it changed its voting procedures. After the court killed preclearance, areas with racially biased voting histories closed polling places, purged voter rolls, truncated early voting, instituted racially biased voter ID laws, and so on. Then, in 2023, the Supreme Court, which has blessed blatant political gerrymandering in a clear case of racially motivated gerrymandering, did not strike down the rest of the Voting Rights Act. A big sigh of relief was warranted. But the Eighth Circuit Court of Appeals has just ruled that private citizens and civil rights groups no longer can bring a challenge under the Voting Rights Act. If that case were to be upheld by the Supreme Court, it would gut what remains of that crucially important law. We await the High Court's decision. The Civil Liberties Minute is made possible by the ACLU because freedom can't protect itself.
You're listening to the American Democracy Minute, keeping your government by and for the people. Allowing the currently or formerly incarcerated the right to vote has been a political football for decades. But attitudes are shifting, and at the state and federal level, pro-voter legislation aims to re-enfranchise Americans both in and out of prison. Policies range from Vermont, Maine, and the District of Columbia, where all incarcerated citizens can vote, to the 23 states where voting rights are restored upon release. In 22 states, voting rights may be restored by an act of a governor, judge, or board, or the completion of parole or restitution. In Mississippi, while restoration is possible, it has been wielded as a voter suppression tool, as a federal court ruled earlier this year. The trend, though, has been to restore the rights of returning felons upon release, as Minnesota and New Mexico did in 2023, and to repeal lifetime disenfranchisement. Voting Rights Lab reports that legal action in Delaware last week aims to ensure mail-in voting for misdemeanor offenders and prisoners awaiting trial. Also last week, the Inclusive Democracy Act was introduced in Congress by Vermont U.S. Senator Peter Welch and Massachusetts U.S. Representative Ayanna Pressley. The bill would allow eligible incarcerated citizens the right to vote in federal elections regardless of criminal convictions. Expect more legislation re-enfranchising the current and formerly incarcerated in 2024. We have links to the rules in your state at AmericanDemocracyMinute.org. I'm Brian Beal.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1945. That was the day that workers ended their 99-day strike against the Ford Motor Company in Windsor, Ontario. Just across the river from Detroit, workers from the UAW Local 200 fought and won a union shop and dues checkoff. They had to fight hard to get it. The plant was organized during World War II. Workers put off many demands to help with the war effort. After the war, Ford refused to agree to a new contract and laid off 1,500 workers. The workers voiced their rage and issued new demands. They wanted vacation and layoff pay, better grievance procedures, and medical benefits. They also wanted compensation for work on Sundays and holidays. When Ford refused to budge, 14,000 workers took to the picket line and went on strike. By October, they also shut down the powerhouse that brought light, heat, and power to the plant. Management complained machinery would be damaged if the power remained off. The Ontario Provincial Police and the Royal Canadian Mounted Police were called in to reopen the plant. When they arrived, they found a barricade of some 2,000 cars and trucks reinforcing the picket lines. Then, 8,000 workers from Amalgamated Local 195, which included Chrysler workers, walked out in sympathy. They joined the picket lines and stayed out for a month. The Women's Auxiliary organized to feed the strikers. They had financial support from unions, churches, and small businesses from across the country. Returning soldiers marched in solidarity rallies along with much of the community. Because of this strong showing of support, negotiations were jump-started and soon workers were ratifying a new contract. This victory allowed what is now Unifor 584 to win unprecedented gains for its members for more than 3 decades.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. We always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 48 degrees Fahrenheit, expecting a high of only around 50 to 52. Rainy conditions at the moment, and will continue through the morning with showers continuing this afternoon. Winds will be light and variable, and expecting something less than a quarter inch of rain today and tonight, which tonight will have showers early, then cloudy later on overnight. Lows in the low 40s, winds light and variable, and tomorrow it looks like we're going to be partly cloudy skies with highs near 60. Winds light and variable, and it looks like we'll be a bit drying out tomorrow, and then some more rain on Thursday or Friday, and then the weekend looks to be clear, and then lots of rain coming on Christmas. Okay, no snow, but we'll be getting rain. Pollen is rated as none here in Rogue River proper. The air quality index for the region is in the good range at 20 parts per million, and that daytime UV index continues at its winter low at level 1. Barometric pressure is falling at 29.6 inches. Visibility is at 5 miles, and relative humidity is at 98%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world, and that is the Weather Underground. London is 48 degrees and cloudy. Paris is 48 degrees and cloudy. Rome is 55 and clear. Bagram is 38 degrees and partly cloudy. Kyiv is 40 and cloudy. Hong Kong is 55 degrees and fair. Tokyo is 45 degrees and cloudy. Melbourne, Victoria, Australia is 58 and partly cloudy. San Francisco, California is 60 degrees and cloudy with a small craft advisory. Chicago, Illinois is 23 degrees and partly cloudy with its own small craft advisory. And New York is 42 degrees Fahrenheit and mostly cloudy. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. Staff at the World Desk of the Associated Press brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. Greece's anti-terrorism squad is investigating after the National Riot Police headquarters was targeted yesterday Monday with a bomb that was defused before it could explode as police union members protested increasing violence against officers in the force. Authorities had been alerted after an anonymous caller warned a newspaper that the bomb would explode in 45 minutes and described where it had been planted. That gave bomb disposal experts time to find and defuse the device. The bomb had been left in a copse near the riot police headquarters outside the city center and close to a university campus. There was no claim of responsibility. Such bomb attacks have long been associated with domestic far-left militants. Many in Greece accuse riot police of brutality against demonstrators during the myriad protests held by left-wing groups or students who often attack police, sparking widespread clashes. Violence is also common during sports events where fans attack police when not fighting each other. On December 7th, a riot policeman was critically injured by a flare when fans attacked police outside an Athens arena where a volleyball match was being played. An 18-year-old man has been arrested on suspicion of firing the flare, which hit the policeman in the leg, severing an artery. The attack was linked with soccer hooligans and triggered a 2-month ban on fans attending Greek top-flight soccer matches. Later yesterday, Monday, about 1,500 uniformed members of the police, fire service, and Coast Guard marched through central Athens to protest the attack on the riot policemen and the bomb incident. Union members want their jobs to be officially designated as dangerous, which would accord them certain pay and pension benefits.
Je te donne c'est mon amour pour la vie entière. La promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle. C'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer. Mes automnes, quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
Kelvin Chan of the Associated Press brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. The European Union yesterday, Monday, made Elon Musk's online platform X the first tech company to face an investigation under Europe's tough new regulations designed to clean up social media and protect people from toxic online content. The 27-nation bloc is ratcheting up the pressure on X after asking the company in October for information on its handling of hate speech, misinformation, and violent terrorist content related to the Israel-Hamas war. The case presents the first test for the Digital Services Act, part of a set of pioneering regulations that the EU is drawn up to rein in the power of tech companies. The European Commission, the EU's executive branch, will now investigate X's systems and policies related to certain suspected infringements of the DSA. Spokesman Johannes Berkey told a press briefing in Brussels it does not prejudge the outcome of the investigation. The San Francisco-based social media platform says it is committed to complying with the Digital Services Act and is cooperating with the regulatory process. It is important that this process remains free of political influence and follows the law. Now, the EU's investigation will look into whether X failed to do enough to curb the spread of illegal content, such as hate speech or incitement of terrorism, to its 112 million users in Europe. That includes the effectiveness of X's tools for users to flag up illegal material and posts and ads so that it can be swiftly removed, as well as whether the company is following its own policies on restricting sensitive content. The investigation also will examine whether X's measures to combat information manipulation, especially through its crowdsourced community notes fact-checking feature, were effective within the European Union. Lastly, the investigation will look into whether users are being tricked by suspected deceptive design of X's interface, including for its blue check subscription service. The blue check marks once signified that the person or institution behind an account was genuine, such as a celebrity, athlete, or journalist, but now merely indicate someone pays $8 a month to post their boosts above unchecked users. That brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day, but you do know Netroots Radio broadcasts on, and we will meet up here tomorrow for Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks, and we will meet up here tomorrow, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théères, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.